Welcome back, and for anybody that's new, I'm Casey. I've been creating stuff my entire life, but now I'm bringing it to YouTube to hopefully help you guys, and best of all, hopefully inspire others. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how I made this fall table. I really think it's a cool project, and better yet, it was a perfect gift for the wife. Alright, let's get to it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to need is some leaves. And there's no better time to do it than the fall, of course, because that's when they're colored. Now, you may not live in an area like I do where you have all these available leaves, but I hope you do. Otherwise, you might be able to improvise with something that you have around you, and they just may need to be green. Either way, this is a good time to get out with somebody that you care about and just enjoy the wilderness and enjoy the scenery that's around you. So I got one of these nice looking handy panels from the Menards near us. I just had to take it down to dimension, clean up the edges, and then of course let my wife pick which one she likes.
It looks like, you know when you cut a side of the board and you have those weird cuts? This is what it looks like. Here, it sucks, I don't like it. This one has less of it because I want this one. This is what I want. Mine. It's mine.
Alright, so now we can take those fall leaves, and I just placed them in a book here with a whole bunch of weights on top, as many weights as I could gather. They really need to be flat, the flatter the better. Now on the edges of that board I'm going to tape a barrier. I had this plastic laying around, so that's what I hot glued there. Now I'm going to mix up the epoxy. I'm using Untitled Epoxy for countertops. It's an epoxy that requires equal amounts, and then you just mix it together. I do recommend that you warm it up in like the bathtub or the sink ahead of time. Most critical step is obviously to get it very level as you're working with a liquid. We're going to put down a first layer before we put the leaves on, and that way we can ensure that they're encapsulated on both sides. This is going to be very critical so that way they don't turn brown. Although I can attest that this at least works for a couple years, I don't know if it would work for like 10 years. And then my wife made them into a nice neat pattern. I just measured them out and we pressed them down to get all the air from underneath them. Once that's cured, we can put another layer on top. This may not be the last layer. If they're still poking through the top, then you'd want to put a third layer on to make sure they're completely encapsulated. So you've probably seen this 1,000 times, but you use a torch to pop the little air bubbles, and this is incredibly satisfying. Part of my choice and selection of the tree was the type of bark that it had on it, but also the fact that these ones were going to be cut anyways. I will have to say it was a little sketchy cutting them down on my table saw, but it worked out. So for my choice of hardware, it was a bit on the shiny side, so I wanted to remove that. So in order to get this zinc coating off, I soaked them in vinegar, and that removes it. You can see the bubbling action in there. Takes a few hours, but it's well worth it. Afterwards, I gave them a quick scrub and a washing with soap and water. Now this super blue that I'm using, the really nice part about it is not only the color that it gives, but it also gives it a protective coating so it shouldn't rust in the future. It is a bit expensive, so I didn't do the entire bolts, but I did the whole nuts. Common theme on this channel is to work with what you got, and what I have is this old railroad jack and just a normal size hammer, and I quick made a forge just so I could do this project. This was by no means anywhere near as short as this video. I think I spent 6 days doing this, but it was well worth it. I found that the writing on the top gave me the best textures on it, so I even at one point sharpened them up a little bit. Now for the legs, I ended up testing a clear coat on them, and it just gave it too much of a yellowy look. With that, the little pieces that are going to scrape off are just going to scrape off, and that's fine. After the epoxy had cured, now it's time to get off of that border. So I cut down some MDF, and I'm going to take and bolt the legs to it, and this kind of makes it a little bit more serviceable as well as a lot stronger. Now in drilling these holes, I have no idea what I was doing wrong, but I sharpened this bit probably 5-6 times, and I also bought a different one to see if that would do it, and it just wanted to chew through them. I'm not sure if it was the heating process that maybe hardened the steel or what, but it was horrible. So now I wire brush these to get all the scale off of it from heating them up, and now I'm going to super glue these as well. Now I ended up walking away and forgetting about them and letting the super glue dry, but you just wipe that off and they turn out good. Alright, so now I'm going to make the trim to go around the table, and instead of having it all light, I want to break it up a little bit. So the top is a very light color, the legs are white, obviously because of the fact they're birch, and I'm going to break it up with a little bit of this walnut. So now I just got to take and I got to trim each side so I can joint these. I should say so I can glue these, but I'm basically going to join them on my table saw using this piece of wood right here. It's not the best way to do it, but it's the only way I have to do it. So, let's go. Very cheap on eBay, worth every single cent. A lot of these tools would not be necessary for this job, especially if you already had pieces or you bought pieces to go around the edge that didn't need to be jointed together. However, I have the tools, so I'm going to use them. And if you guys have suggestions for me to improve my channel, go ahead and throw me a comment below. I'd love to hear your feedback. On the sides, instead of fighting scraping the glue off and trying to clean that up, I decided just to cut it a little bit down more. Alright, so now it's time to attach the hardware. Again, I gotta give credit to my wife for having these tools, as she decided to give them as a gift for me. Since the tree isn't perfectly straight, I attached them at all four corners, and then where they crisscrossed, that's where I drilled it out and attached it in the center with another bolt. Now after gluing the trim on all four sides, now I can mate the top and the bottom part together. And I'm just going to fasten this together with like 6 screws. Now I'm going to use some butcher block conditioner, mainly because it looks like stain and I have commitment issues and this doesn't stay permanently. But wow, is that satisfying to watch that go on. Alright, so let's take a look at this table, but real quick, just a word from the sponsor, me. Please, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, share with a friend, help me out a little. Alright, let's check it out. Well, there you have it. Go ahead, make yours, share it with us, and we'll see you next time.